Land, dude, thanks for being on today.
For sure.
Dude, this has been a pod I've wanted to do for a hot minute. Actually, Garrett, my brother, was asking me, he's like, when's Landon's pod coming out? And I was like, dude, we're cooking this up, dude.
That's
so
awesome.
I know this is going to be a fun one. Well, for me personally, just because a lot of people don't know this, but in my door-to-door history, I feel like you've been from the very, almost from the very beginning. I've either crossed paths or been with you on multiple different levels, and I think it's just gonna be fun to one, learn from you, and also just get back into it. So
let's do it.
That's cool. So could you just really quick, because you have a long, rich history in door to door, if you could kind of start us about kind of how you got into it, the door to door space, pest control and whatnot, and then just bring us forward a little bit, and we'll kind of get into it.
Yeah. So I'm from Washington, and so door to door, we don't know anything about it. It's not like Utah where everyone knows about it. So senior in high school, I just remember having a conversation with my mom, and she tells me, it's probably March or April senior year, and she's like, how are you going to pay for your mission? I'm like, wait, what? You guys aren't paying for that? And I'm like, how much is it? She's like, it's $10,000. So I'm thinking to myself, I have no idea how I can make $10,000 before my mission, because I was going to leave in 6 months. And then shortly after that, our Uncle Greg, who owned a company in Texas, reached out to me, kind of just talked to me about it. It wasn't too aggressive of a recruiter or anything. He just told me, and I was like, let's do it. So, shortly after high school, just 2 days after graduation, just flew down. I didn't know anyone on the team, didn't have any buddies with me. Honestly, had no training or expectations, and just jumped into it that first year. So, started down in Dallas, 2016, about a half summer because I came out of high school, and did that summer, then left on my mission. And then right after I came back from my mission, that was our first summer together. You were leading that team. And that's when it really took off. I started to love it and learn a ton and see the potential of it and just have a ton of fun with it. So after 2019, we had a great summer. 2020, I stayed at Romney after you guys left and ran the team there. And obviously COVID summer. So a lot of crazy things, but had a great summer.
That COVID summer was fun, dude.
It was the best summer yet. Everyone's home, a few crazy people, but man, I loved it,
dude. And this might be controversial. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but dude, COVID was a great time for me.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Sales wise, business was growing.
I loved it,
and also too, I felt like everyone was home. It's just nice. So.
Yeah, all time of day. Yeah. So that was a great summer. Really pushed my limits there as a team lead, and then after that, I was looking to, because I was still in college. I was am I going to go back to college? It's all online now. Everything's shut down. And I had a few people telling me you could start a business. And so I decided, let's do that. So I just dropped out of college. Right when I got home from that 2020 summer, I started working on my company, talked to you a lot about that, and got a lot of good advice from you. And then just decided early 2021 to move down to Arizona to start that. And next 3.5 years was just recruiting teams, building teams, selling during the summer, managing during the off season. And working full time with that, and then just recently sold that company, and now we're here. So
love it. Okay, so where I want to start with being recruited, initially when your mom, because I had the same experience. Me and Greg had a conversation, but my mom a month prior brought a baseball bat out and was like, "Are you gonna do this?" But walk me through on Greg's conversation with you, because I'm interested, because I had the same thing. I just was like, hey, I don't even really understand the numbers, I don't understand anything, but I'm just going to say yes because I've been told I have to.
Yeah. Probably pretty similar, because my older brother did it with you that two years before that, so I knew it was a thing, but you two were the only people I knew that had done it outside of our uncles and stuff, and so I had no idea what it was like or how big it was at the time or would get to be. But yeah, we had a phone call maybe 10 minutes. I remember just being in the car going with my family to a family dinner one night, and he just kind of tells me about it. He's like, I'll send you a PDF. And so I got home that night, looked at the pay scale, and I was just saw some big numbers on it, and I was like, I see 10,000 there, so I think I got to do it.
Yeah, it's that's more than lunch money I've been having for the past couple of years.
So yeah, it was the only way I knew I could make enough money to go on my mission. That's all that mattered at the time.
That's cool. So, kind of towards the tail end of you bringing us forward, you were kind of talking about starting your business and jumping in there and stuff like that. But I feel like the journey starts a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. When did you start to feel that sense of ownership? okay, like I own my situation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And when, like, and like, how did that grow over time? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably senior year of high school was one of the first times where I really felt that. Where basketball season, we had a good basketball team, and I was on varsity, and a lot of good athletes, good players that had played their whole lives, had trainers, and all that kind of stuff, and I'm pretty much an average guy. But every preseason, our coach had a conditioning test, and so we'd have to run 10 suicides in under 30 seconds each, and so back to back to back to back. And so I knew that because I did that freshman, sophomore, junior year. I knew it was coming, and I just wanted to set myself apart. I didn't have a great junior season, and I was like, I don't have a lot going for me athletically, but I know I can outwork people. And so for the few months leading up to that season, I decided I'm going to double the standard, and I'm going to run 2 in 60 seconds and then rest 2 in 60 seconds. And when the standard was 1 every 30 seconds rest, 30 seconds rest. And so I think from that point on, and it went great, and I proved myself to the team and to the coach and had a great season. And then I kind of just carried that, just knowing that I know I can put in more work than other people and get better results. And a lot of jobs, hourly pay, salary type things don't offer that, but business and sales is a great opportunity to showcase that and yield the result of it.
I love it. So Carter Dunn,
Mm-hmm.
I asked him a question. So we shot his pod a little while ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I was asking him, hey, who from like the team, besides someone that brought you out and someone that was your manager, who's someone that inspired you? And he brought you up.
That's cool.
And he actually brought up a very similar thing that you're bringing up of like, hey, I might not be more like gifted in some ways, but I can outlast you.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think that's something that you've always like had, and I'm glad to see it started young. But like one of the cool things, and let's talk about like Saturday evenings. So Saturday schedule for those like tuning in or new is modified. You can
Mm-hmm.
either choose to work a little like less time, or you can choose to go like and work as long like, like put a little extra effort in. What like I felt like it was like every Saturday, like you, Elise, Lily, everyone was like, hey, we're gonna go out and we're gonna be knocking until 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
When did that start for you? Was that something that like when did you start making like, hey, I'm gonna make this conscious decision to like, even though the bell rung, like I'm gonna go later? And like what were the benefits other than just the money that came from that?
Yeah. I think going back to my first summer, and there's so many stories from that summer, but like I said, I had zero training, zero expectations. My managers, I love those guys. The team was a hodgepodge of different kind of guys, but I just remember there was one team meeting where something came up about work ethic, and I said to the whole team, I was like, I'm the hardest worker on the team. And my manager was like, no, you're not. And I was like, I promise you I am. And back then, we're doing everything on paper contracts. There's not Zero or Pest Routes or things where you can really track things. And so I just told him, I was like, the only thing we track is our steps in the day. And I said, I promise you I'll outstep you today. And he's like, let's go. And so we go, and we're not even on scooters or Segways or anything. We're just on foot. So all day, I'm going. And we get back at the end of the night, and I show him, and I had like 32,000 steps that day. And he had like 20. And he's like, that was a lie. That was a fluke. Let's go again. And the next day, I put up like 35,000 steps, and he had like 25. And so that was one time where it just, again, it's just the only thing I control is my work ethic, and I'm going to outwork anyone around me. And it doesn't matter how much I make or how much recognition I get. It's just the feeling inside of me, just knowing I have nothing left in the tank and I left it all out there is the best feeling for me.
And that feeling, I feel like a lot of times when you're starting out, because over time I feel like people get more earnest on that. Like when I started out, like I would be like, yeah, and I really feel that from you, like that's what motivates you. But like in the beginning, I think for guys starting out, having that be your true motivation is so central to growth. Just because a lot of times I remember when I was first selling, it was like, dude, I just want to beat like that one guy that won't shut up in the morning meeting, or I just want to and that was what was pushing me. But once I felt like I moved that, like my personal, like I just want to grow, I feel like one, I was happier, sold better, and I also just feel like too, like just I could breathe.
No, it's definitely a progression, because I remember that even the first few days, I mean, fresh out of high school, you're like, I don't know if I could survive this. I'm just like, I need to go to the bathroom. People are just hating on me. I'm just like, this is the craziest thing I've ever done. And so there were definitely those first few weeks when I'm just like hating it and like trying to figure it out. But yeah, what it came down to is I can control my work ethic, and like you said, it helps you breathe. It helps you like not stress over results or numbers or competition between you or someone else. It's just you versus you.
Yeah. Okay, so You kind of brought up like, hey, like college. So you were like, hey, like I was going, but then I made the decision ultimately to go out and like jump into my own business. Now, I've seen a lot of people make that jump, like of being like, hey, like school's not for me anymore. I'm gonna go over here. One thing though that like a lot of times I feel like people don't continue learning. With you though, I've always felt like the reason you left was because you're like, hey, I want to learn. And talk to me currently on like what are things you're doing now or have done maybe throughout like summers or past things to keep you growing in that? Because I think a lot of times there's a ton of guys in our organization and still that are gonna that will run that track and everything like that. But I feel like you've done a really good job of continuing to sharpen the saw. How like what do you do? How do you do? Because I feel like we could learn a lot from that.
Yeah, I always told people like kind of my decision breaking point was I know I could either go to school and get a business degree or marketing degree or whatever else, or I could just do it in person and just like do business and learn it that way. And both of them have costs to it. Like you either pay tuition or there's a lot of time and money you lose doing business. Yeah, tons of audiobooks. I remember our summer together. That was something you really taught me was just get, I think it's the Abraham Lincoln quote, where if you had like 8 hours to chop down a tree, he'd spend 7 hours sharpening the axe. And so I remember every day just having Door-to-Door Millionaire in the car, and I wasn't the driver, so every day I'd read like 3 pages and use something specific from that. And then ever since then, reading's a huge thing for me. I have tons of books that I learned from, podcasts, just talking to people that are better than me and asking them questions, those kind of things.
I love it. Okay, I actually want to talk about that summer. So the was that summer
2019?
2019. Okay, summer 2019 when we sold together. I felt like you and Daisy's car group was one of my favorite car groups, but it also was one of the car groups that challenged me more than any. And then I want to explain that. I felt like you two were both crazy capable, would go out and make things happen every single day. But if I ever like got off track in the morning meeting, you guys were really good at just giving it to me and keeping me like honest. And so I loved like you guys were a huge like just that whole summer. Like I loved that team. I loved that like people like that car group I thought was like phenomenal. And one of the things too is like you really pushed a lot of guys that summer. I remember like Spencer Strong, Ty, they were always trying to chase you on like on the competitions and different stuff like that. I feel like you've always had like this like, hey, I like to kind of like, how do you put it? Like almost like I like to like poke the bear and like kind of stir things up. And I honestly think that it's a great culture thing that wakes a lot of people up and people can respond really well to it.
Yeah.
Is that something that like naturally you do, like that you learned, or is that like my question I guess is like how have you seen that motivate people over time, kind of like poking at them, and then also like does it like what's been the ROI on kind of like yeah
I don't know where it started, but yeah, I mean I think what it comes down to is two things. One is it's honestly for me like I love competition. I love people pushing me, and so whenever I can get that out of someone, it makes me better. And so I love just kind of poking people and whatever, saying how many sales I got the day before. Like I remember multiple times this summer just walking out of the team meeting and just like calling out before I even knew anyone's name. It was like week 1. I'm just like, hey, I'm gonna outsell you today, $50. And he's like, deal. And like 4 or 5 times that happened. But no, I just have fun with it because it makes me better. But I also love seeing people become better through it because I don't know. I feel like throughout life, a lot of people get complacent and they get comfortable with where they're at, or it's a long journey, and in the middle of it, it becomes super repetitious, and you just forget the why and the drive behind it. So I love just poking people so they can find that within themselves and just seeing them grow from that. And sometimes it's taken the wrong way, but I think all in all, it makes the whole team better.
I also think though it creates a positive environment because it keeps people awake. And it's one of the things that I think you'll see a lot of summers, people fall asleep. And they fall asleep in different ways. Like sometimes they literally fall asleep, like you literally have to pick them up at the McDonald's. Or they'll fall asleep like emotionally, or they'll fall asleep like mentally. It's like they're going out and like doing the exact same thing, but they've gotten no sales. And I think just like a good constant chatter, and it doesn't even have to be a poke, but it can be like a soft like, hey, how you doing? Checking in. I think all those things, just positive communication is essential for growth in any kind of environment. So that's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, walk me through. So Victory Pest Control. So, I mean, you built that up and sold it, made a great exit on it. Talk to me about that journey. And I mean, honestly, it's something that I'm still like, I'm looking forward to eventually one day selling my business. What do you feel like full circle? Like, what did you learn in that experience of like starting your own pest control company and then like leaving? Like, what were some of the overarching lessons?
Man, there's so many. I'm sure you have so many from where you're at still too. I mean, you're farther ahead than I was, but I think at the end of the day, you just learn so much about yourself. There's a lot of quotes I like where it's not about the results in any business or work or anything. It's not about the results, but it's what the work does to you. And so I just look back 3 or 4 years later and just see I'm a much different person. I tell people if I knew what I was getting into 4 years ago, I probably never would have started the company. Like it was a lot of stress, a lot of hard days, a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty, but it pushed me to my limits to problem solve, to find the right people, to train them up, to dig deep with myself, to make things happen when ends weren't meeting. So I think it just taught me that I can go create something from zero into something, which is a pretty cool skill to have. And now I know that I can go do that the rest of my life. So
I love it. So all of our listeners, kind of coming in, all of us want to be entrepreneurs. Everyone that's involved here, like we all want to like create a good life and stuff for ourselves. What are some things in going into starting a business that you were like, I wasn't expecting this, but prepare for this when you do go out and set your sales and make your company? Like, what are some things you're like, keep an eye on this. This is important to learn about. It's important to know about.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship it's great, and it's also at the same time not overhyped, but I think there's a different image of it than it really is. There's an image on social media where it's the cars you're driving, the restaurants you're going to, the trips you're going on, and that can be true eventually, but I think what you don't see is the 18-hour days, the 100-hour weeks, the payroll's not going to meet and I need to go do this, or there's a lot of stress, and there's the firings, the hard conversations, there's just so many things that you don't know about. And so it just really comes down to like, are you willing to are you willing to do what it takes to be successful? And I think, that's the same thing with this sales in the summer. You have to ask yourself, like, will I do what it takes, and whatever it takes, no matter how I feel or what it's going to take out of me. And then I always just tell people, it's whatever you expect, it's going to take longer, it's going to be harder, and it's going to cost more than you expect it to be.
Yeah. And one thing that I think for me that I think is tough about it too is you kind of have to sleep with one eye open on the fact that like when you are resting, when there is downtime, you have to be very ready for that to end at any moment and being willing to respond and jump back in.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that is tough. But I also think too, that's how it works with animals. That's what Mother Nature sometimes requires. So I think summer sales, starting a business, all these things, they kind of teach you that it like, hey, be ready to be the host in that sense. And as you do, you learn and grow, and it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some like work ethic heroes. Talk to me about some people that you're like, hey, like I'd love if you could give one that maybe you don't know, you've just like viewed them from afar. Maybe one that you do know, and then if you could also give me like maybe someone that you helped train up that you were like, that was a hero of mine. Because I think a lot of times people don't think like that. They don't think like, hey, like someone that I employed or brought through. Who are three people like that?
Yeah. I think one recently I've really latched on to, I like Jesse Itzler a lot, and he has a lot of good content. And one of my favorite things is his quote. He teaches it to his kids, but they put up a 0 because they do a lot of marathons or races or triathlons. And whenever they're crossing the finish line, they hold up a 0, and it means nothing left in the tank. And so he just teaches his kids that, and he lives it, and you see it. But it's just whatever you do, finish with nothing left in the tank. And that's something that as a leader, I try to teach my people is wherever you're at, it's different for everyone. But all I ask of you is just to finish with nothing left in the tank, and sales will come. So that's one there.
I love that. That's a good one.
It's cool.
Does he have a book on that, or is it a podcast?
No, I mean it's on social media. He talks about it a lot. His speaking events, those kind of things.
Okay. I
love it. Someone that in my life, I think this past summer, the 2 girls I was training, Lisa and Lily, their work ethic was really inspiring to me. There were a lot of days where they woke up sick, they were throwing up. There was days where our power went out. There were days when just a lot of adversity and things where a lot of people's first summer that pushes you over the edge, and you're like, where can I get a ticket home? Like, I got to get out of here. But every day they showed up, and like you mentioned, Saturdays I would knock late, and they would just, whatever you're doing, I'm doing. And I think as a rep, that's a really critical trait to have is just stick to your leader. Just hit your wagon to your leader, and they're going to get you to where you want to go. It's going to be ugly, but they showed me that if you put in the work, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it.
Cool. Dude, one thing about like Lily that impressed me, she'd be like going through it out there. She'd like call me with a disaster, and she'd kind of say it like, "Hey, Dawes, this is what's going on." I'm like, dude, I would have been like crying.
100%. Yeah, I've had so many calls where it's like, dude, I sprained my toe. I need 3 days off. But then there's the opposite where they're like, oh, by the way, last week I was throwing up every day, but I didn't mention it. And those kind of people are the best. And then you said someone that trained me or that I've worked with.
Or it's just someone in your life. It doesn't even have to be like in maybe pest control, but maybe somebody you're just like, I've always been like inspired or impressed by this person's work ethic or this like and why.
Yeah, I think my brother Daisy, he's I think the coolest thing about certain people is the people that you don't realize they have a good work ethic until you like really look into it a little bit more, that they just make it look easy or they make it look natural. And there's some people that want to make sure you know they're working hard or want to make sure like, hey, they're putting forth the work, but he's someone that day in, day out puts in the time, puts in the work, but at the same time has a super balanced life of showing up for people in his life and caring for his responsibilities and people he's over and his family, but at the same time is the hardest worker in his work environment too.
That's cool. And one of the things that I like about Daisy too is like, I think a lot of times in work atmospheres, people start focusing on the money, they start focusing on like what they have to do, and they start focusing on like all the different balls or things they got to juggle and stuff like that. But Daisy does a good job of always making sure that the person or like that like needs to be taken care of. And I think a lot of times in business, I've caught myself over the years where like I'll slip and I'll be like too focused on the cause or too focused on the X's and O's.
For sure.
And I think he's always been a great reminder to me of like those things are crazy important, but going with like a good energy with everybody with me is like super, super important. And I think he's Herculean in that aspect that like he's so like sometimes he's working so hard on keeping all those together and I don't even realize it.
Yeah.
and I'm like, dang, dude, it's impressive.
No, it goes back to the quote where it's just like if you take care of your people will take care of everything else. As a business leader, as a team manager, team lead, like take care of your people and everything will come. And looking back with hindsight too on selling a company or even just like summers in the past, you never really remember how much you made or whatever you're pushing for. It's just like the people you're with and the memories you made with them and how hard you pushed each other and what you came out with. So
it's so true. I was talking about this the other day. I'm like, I can't remember the exact dollar amount, but you always know that next year what you need to make. Like you always know that next year. Like it's like this is what the back end needs to be. But yeah, looking back, it's like I can't even remember what 2013, 2019, where all that stuff was. Well, cool. As far as like advice, so I mean, you've had a beautiful, like, I mean, basically 10-year tenure now in pest control. What's one thing that you would like say to like someone that's like kind of getting into it? What's some things you're like, I would have loved to have done this different. I would have loved to have known this. Something like that. Could you speak?
Yeah. I think real quick, I mean, first off, we started in a time, like I said, where it was paper contracts, no training, on foot. And I tell people I was trained to just knock every single door. And so most of my time was spent just standing on porches, just like clearly no one's home, but that's how I'm taught to do it. So I think first thing first is just train, the videos and one-on-ones with your manager, weekly meetings at the office is put forth the work to be great. There's a quote I like from Alex Ramosi where he just says, you put in enough work where it's unreasonable that you wouldn't be good at that thing. So a lot of people just want to get by with like the least amount of effort or just like, what's the bar? What's the standard? I'll do that. But go all out and just be like, it would be crazy if I failed having put in this much work. And so that's different for everyone. Some people need to develop habits and get in shape more or just waking up, sleeping in certain things outside of sales, but everything really compounds to one. So I'd say that. And then I guess secondly is really just go all out. Like the summer, it feels long, but it's short. And if you do it right, it can take care of the rest of your year and set you up for several years down the road. And so just know there's hard days, there's days that are ugly, but just make a commitment up front that I'm going to put in the work. There could be family tragedies, there could be bad weather, there could be a lot of things that go sideways, but if you just commit up front and stick to that commitment, everything else will take care of itself.
100%. Well, I like what you're talking about there about like not giving the bare minimum. I think a lot of times in life, in like school or like growing up, like people teach you only need to get to this line. And I think getting in that habit, that's not going to train you to own a business. It's not going to train you to be successful at sales, because in reality, like there's always a surplus of energy you've got to give that you're not expecting. And when I think like that sounds depressing, but I also think it keeps like fun, because if it was always like you just got the reward when you hit that, like, I don't know, I feel like it keeps life a little spicy and growing. And it's important to understand that that is the world you live in.
And I think there's a lot of guys that they give that much effort and they don't see results at that point, and so they count it out, or they say it's not worth it, or it's not for me, just because they didn't give enough time or didn't really go all out. So I'm huge on just give everything you have and it's going to work out. So just commit to it, and don't just get your foot wet. Don't just kind of test out the waters. Just commit to something and stick with it.
100%. Okay. I think a lot of times when you're getting in a sales organization, people focus very heavily on the sales and not the ops. But I think both are important, and they affect you like on each level. What's one thing as now owning, operating, and selling a business that you're like, from a sales guy's perspective, I think this is important to just understand and consider to enhance your experience. Didn't have a good summer, basically.
As a sales rep?
Yeah, as a sales rep.
I think from the sales rep's perspective, a lot of times, especially early on, they just want to get names on the board. They just want to get people on the schedule and just like hope it sticks, or just not do the bare minimum, but like it might go through, it might not. And so I think it's really important to know that think about the technician's point of view, or the branch manager's point of view, or all the back end side of things. Customer service is everything will go smoother if there's clear expectations with the customer, if you put in detailed notes in the appointment note, if you get credit card on file up front. Like if you get all those things out of the way, the whole experience for everyone goes a lot smoother. You get paid more as a salesman. Technicians like you, because I've seen this side of the technician where they come to me and say, hey, I don't like going to so and so's houses because they're always whatever, they're mad we came, or like they didn't know we were doing such and such. But if you can get on the good side of the technicians, the customer service team, the branch manager, you'll be in good hands, and all your sales go smoother. So I just think go the extra mile with your customers, walk them through things, don't leave things in the gray area. Be very clear on contracts and pricing and what the service is and what to expect, and never overpromise. I like setting decent expectation and letting the technician over deliver. So that'll take care of a lot of different things.
Love it. Okay, so you've been in many morning meetings. You've met a lot of different guys. Who's been the funniest person in all, like, the different, who's like that person every day I walked in and that was just like, I knew it was going to be funny? Is there someone that you're like, dude, that dude was like, he brought joy?
Dude, man, 2019, I feel like we had a lot of those. I'm thinking of Addison was a funny guy. He didn't last long.
Dude, shout out Addison. Hopefully he watches this.
If he watches it, that'd be awesome. That guy was fun. I just remember every time we came, there was some different story. There was he'd usually walk in late and he was like looking for his lost cat, or like texting a mom that he met on the doors the day before, or I don't even know. That guy, I wondered, you never knew what was going on for that guy.
Dude, he said some of the crazy stuff. I remember I was like, hey, dude, like, how was yesterday? He's like, dude, I talked to like 2 hot moms. I was like, dude,
I was there a couple of times. He said he kissed some people on the doors. I don't know. But that was a different time when there weren't as many Ring cameras and Google reviews and those kind of things.
Dude, that was crazy. Rest in peace, Princess Paws.
That and the fork.
Okay, I love it. As far as like, I mean, I think you're always growing in sales. Like you're always getting better. Maybe what's something this last year that you're like, hey, I learned this kind of later in the game, and or relearned or something like that. You're like, oh, dude, this is just something to always keep present. Like for me, there were several things I learned this past summer. Like for example, like I was like, oh, dude, like I used to think that I needed to like run really quick, but then I realized that no, I just need to get the best at running everybody's hearts together to go forward. Is there anything that you're like, oh, like this past year, this really clicked for me?
Yeah, I think that's something interesting. The longer you do this, is you think coming in that every year will kind of stack on itself, and in some ways it does. But I still remember 2020. That was my first. We were together 2019. 2020, I'm on my own leading a team, and there's almost daily, probably at least weekly. I'm calling you, asking not only from a management perspective, but just as a salesman. I'm like, hey, what do I do here? Like, I'm losing customers at this point. And every time you'd give me answers, it was always more simple than I thought it was going to be. It was usually, hey, are you pre-framed with the customer? Are you name dropping? Are you doing such and such? It was always very elementary basics that I knew that I just kind of forgotten or got lazy with in my pitch. And still this year, that I think that happened multiple times throughout the months and weeks. Is just I'm in a rut, and I still remember calling you certain times, and you're like, hey, you just do a pullback here, and then assess who the decision maker is, or different things that I already knew. But that's the whole point of sales, is you've got to be really mentally engaged the whole time, because if you don't, you're going to start slipping back and get very relaxed with your pitch and forget key points to it. And so, I think being very detailed and mentally present the entire time is so important.
Falling in love with simple answers is tough, because do we all want, like, don't give me the vegetables and fruit, give me like that ibuprofen. And I think, like, in sales, like, the people that fall in love with those simple answers clean up, and what you clean up over time, which is the tough thing. I wish it was more immediate, but it's typically not.
Yeah, I have so many guys, especially early on before they've hit a door, but even during the summer, where they try to say, hey, I think this would work better, or like, hey, I'm doing it this way, and I'm just like, it's so simple that so many people try to overcomplicate it or make it. Just people hear sales and they think it's very like suave or like smooth talking, but especially door to door, it's a very simple formula and a very simple pitch, and it's a simple recipe for success. So much so that people try to dismiss it.
So talk to me really quick about day one of Victory Pest Control. I think it's always fun. I think it's always fun to hear like what it looked like. Can you kind of like paint for us a picture of like what was the beginning of like you starting your company? What did that look like?
Yeah. I can't say clear cut day one. So I moved down to Arizona. I didn't know anyone. Probably should have done more research and stuff, but I just kind of picked a market that I thought had bugs and heat year round and would be a good market to go sell and build a company. So I moved down there March-ish, and I had a team of guys coming out starting in May. So my first week or so, I mean, I'm buying truck, I'm trying to buy a rig, get the guns, and 2020, everything was backed up. So I had to go to Des Moines, Iowa to get a truck, drive it back, get a rig from California, drive it back, and just all over the place, trying to get licensed, trying to figure out what license do I need. And then I'm like, I got to get a technician. So I hired a technician and just told him, I'm like, we have nothing going right. We have 0 customers. I'm just going to go hit the pavement. You're going to follow me, and we're going to build this thing. And so I just remember I cherish those memories. For a month and a half, it was just him following me. And to be honest, there was days I bailed. I'm trying to figure out the market, trying to figure out the differences with the people there. But he trusted me, and we built it from the ground up.
That's sick. And who was that? Like, is he like
His name's David.
David?
Yeah, David's a great guy.
That's cool. Shout out David.
Yeah.
And like for you kind of starting out there, I mean, that had to be pretty motivating, being like, holy crap, like I got someone, like I got another mouth to feed, like besides my own.
Oh man, the stress is crazy because door to door throughout the summer, if you have a bad day, you can bounce back the next day, or hey, I've still got 85 days left, but then it's like we have 0 revenue coming in, we have 0 customers, and this guy needs to pay his bills and pay for his family. And so it was very, very motivating, very stressful. And I'll never forget the day, because I told him early on, I was like, it's going to take some time. It'll probably be part-time to start off. And I remember maybe like mid-April, after kind of a hard week of sales for myself, him texted me late at night after a hard day, and he texted me saying, hey, like, when am I going to be able to get full-time? And that really like clicked me into full gear. Like, I really need to dial down and make this happen.
Mm-hmm. And dude, I love and hate that pressure, because it's stressful, but also too, like, sometimes without it, you're not gonna go to the same heights.
For sure.
And so if you can put yourself in some of those when you're ready for them stressful situations, oh dude, how it expands your mind and gets you just going. It's a good time.
I always tell my guys to try to, I call it cornering yourself, whatever you want to call it, but throughout the summer, corner yourself and put yourself in like depleted circumstances if you don't hit your goal. Like, if I don't hit my goal, then I can't do X, Y, Z. Or there's been funny things, there's been serious things where guys say, if I don't hit my goal, I can't. Some guys like wouldn't eat dinner that night, and they're like, I'm not eating until I hit my goal, and they go the next day, or certain things. But it's true that putting yourself in those circumstances makes you dig deep and to find areas of yourself you didn't even know you had within you.
So I think salesmanship starts along before you're the door-to-door tenure. Is there anything your parents had that you were like, this is a sales skill that I didn't realize they taught me all growing up? Like, is there anything that you're like, I learned this from mom or I learned this from dad?
I think that's funny to think back on, because I wouldn't say any traits they specifically had themselves, but I think as parents they were very hard and fast on things they said. Like whatever they said happened, and they were very not strict, but they stuck to their word. And so as a kid growing up, I mean, I learned a lot of how to kind of like manipulate certain things or kind of bend something. Or, hey, you said it this way, so I'm going to do this way. Or it just made me as a kid very creative and kind of thought outside the box, which is huge for sales. Is you can't just stick to kind of the normal routine of what every kid grows up doing. And so I think that really helped me.
That's cool. So now you've been a sales rep, you've been a team lead, you've owned a company, sold the company. Throughout that journey, a lot of times I think when sales guys start, they think the most important thing that you're doing is sales. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times throughout the journey, you start to realize there's a lot of other things on the side that actually directly impact or take your sales to the next level. What have been some things along your journey that have been that? Does that make sense? That like you weren't directly related to sales maybe, but like having this in my life improved my sales career. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm hearing you. I think the quote of like how you do anything is how you do everything. And so no one can show up day one and just be a killer if for the past 3 months they were just playing Fortnite every night for 5 hours, staying up till 2 a.m. You know, like everything in your life is a reflection of who you are as a person. So I think just slowly but surely building the habits of, I mean, the gym's super important, being healthy, reading books, associating with the right people, not being addicted to social media or shows or certain things like that, and really being in control of yourself will make you in control of your sales. And I've seen so many people just sell themselves short because they let certain things and distractions get in the way. But I think back to the summers where I did the best. I was extremely dialed, where I'd wake up 6 a.m., go to the gym, get back, get ready, have a healthy breakfast, do some training, read on the way to area, sell for the whole day, get back at night, train some more, work with my guys, go to bed. And it's just like clockwork where nothing else is in the way, and I'm just solely focused on my routines and my disciplines.
That's awesome. So, I mean, over the years, I mean, obviously you've put money into different things and invested in different. What are some things that you're like, hey, I'd recommend these things along your journey to like look into or to take a crack at, and try the tables and see if you can't increase your capital?
Yeah, I think it's probably the cheesy answer, but I would always say invest in yourself. I mean, the stock market, you get 7-8% returns on that, but if you invest in yourself, you can get almost infinite returns. In whatever field you're going to be in. But yeah, putting forth the training, the time, and invest in yourself with your health and with the people you surround yourself with, and spend money going to conferences or trainings or seminars or things that just elevate your life way more than spending your money elsewhere would. And so I would always just invest in yourself and your skills and make yourself a more valuable asset. I think as a business owner, I've learned that a lot of times people, which is fair, they complain about their pay or they wish they were paid more, but I've learned that you're paid to the degree that you're unreplaceable in that system. And so make yourself a super valuable asset so that wherever you go, you can't be replaced, and your pay is compensated for that.
100%. And I would add to that, lean into those things that you like.
For sure.
Because if you find something that you're good at that most other people can't do,
yeah, if
you can just keep nailing that, keep hitting that nail with a hammer, dude, it's gonna be tough for people to keep up.
Yeah.
Cool, dude. I feel like we've covered a lot of really good stuff today. I guess in leaving us, or kind of in closing, is there something? Well, actually, I want to say this first. One of the things I've always been very impressed with you is I feel like you have a good vision. I feel like a lot of times people get lost in like the next week, the next quarter, or I feel like you've always had a pretty good idea of like, what does 65 look like? What is like what is like well down the path? What are some things you do like to just always be thinking about down the road? Because I feel like a lot of people aren't naturally like that. Is that something that comes to you pretty naturally, or is that something that you're like, I've worked on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's funny because right now in my life, I have no vision for myself. I have a vision, but there's nothing set. I don't know what's next. I don't know where I'm going. But I think in general, And I was talking to my wife just this week about it, is a lot of times when we plan or think about it, we just work backwards. Like, where do we want to be? What do we want to get? Whether it's a certain amount of income or certain vacation or whatever, the house, and just work backwards. What's going to get me there? And it's just like a recipe. You just follow the recipe and you're going to get that result. And so just take some time to think about, because I think so many people, like you said, just kind of get into the rut of just living the normal life, and they get average results, and their life shows of it. But just be very intentional, just pushing your own limits and thinking, where do I want to be in 20 years or even next year? And then how do I need to live out my life to get there?
Love it. Shout out to Hannah, by the way.
For sure.
Yeah. Just last thing. And is there anything you'd say to people people that are going to come through the camp for the next couple of years? Is there anything you like? This is something that's important to live by, to know, or just to kind of as we're wrapping up.
Big picture for reps coming in, I think just know it's going to be what you make it. It can be the best experience of your life. It can be, I've seen people have it the opposite, where they dread it and they talk down on it just because they didn't put in the work and they didn't prepare for it. But just know whatever you put in, you're going to get out, and that's on a day-to-day basis. And so I've seen so many people where they invest all their time and they leave the summer thanking me for the opportunity, and they're able to use that money to invest and start their own businesses and provide for their family and really enjoy their time year-round. So I just think have fun with it. Don't lose that along the way. It's a long journey, and June and July are long months, and you're right in the middle of it. But have fun. Surround yourself with people that make it fun for you too, and it can be pretty amazing.
I love it, brother. Thanks for sharing your light with us today.
For sure.
Dude, always good to talk. And I'm amazed. Again, we're talking. I'm like, dude, from the very beginning to even now, my sales career, I've got to work with Landon, and I feel tremendously blessed every time we've got to interact. And I've learned so much from you, from your brother, and just from your family. So, yeah, dude, thank you.
It's been a journey. Appreciate it.
So,
thank you.
Over and out.